Aloha out there in television, radio, and internet land. I'm Jason Schwartz, your host of The Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com, to be found on Akaku Maui Community TV, on 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui, and on the internet, lives on YouTube, but you can find all these shows at MauiNeutralZone.com. And of course, because I'm running as a candidate at DreamMaui.com, you'll see that's where I have a link to all the shows and things about me. But that's neither here nor there. I am green, you know that already, but I'm in a nonpartisan race. And my name out there, Schwartz, you know all that. Well, I have another green. I'm very excited to say that because Nikhil Anand has been running for years and been a backbone, but now we have other people that have a lot to say. They have passion in their heart. And some know her and some don't, but you will after this interview. MISH, Melissah Shishido. How do you like to be described? What do you want to be on the ballot?
It's going to say Melissah Shishido, and then MISH will be in parentheses.
Did MISH come about because your kids couldn't say it easily and they took Melissah
No.
and Shishido?
It's odd how you would say that because I just got back from 3 weeks of extensive travel for training, and I've been often asked my parents, why did you spell my name Melissah and pronounced it Melissah? And I recently discovered, literally 3 weeks ago, that my name was purposely misspelled by my mother. And she spelt it in a way because I was supposed to be named after my grandmother who lived in Greenville, Missouri. And her name was Floyd Melissah, spelled Melissa. And I believe it has a Greek origin. And it's so ironic that I chose the name Yaya, the title Yaya, to be called, my grandchildren call me that, and Yaya means grandmother in Greek. So when I recently found out, I had to make a stop in California on my way back for some technical training. And I started the process in changing the spelling of my name. So my girlfriends in high school chopped it from Melissah to Melish, then it ended up at MISH over 40 years ago.
Well, that's great. And I'm Jason, my given name is Jack. And John Kennedy was president. His nickname was Jack. So people used to think my name was John and I just was being like the president. But my given name was Jack, like Jacob in the Jewish religion. So I said my name was Jason. And they liked that. We made it up. And my mother said, that's a nice name. When American Express gave me a credit card with Jason on it, I adopted it. And so I've been Jason Schwartz. I look in Google on Jason Schwartz, 43,000 things.
Wow.
Look under Jack Schwartz, Maui, 12 things. So you obviously, journey. When you're coming with a name like that and Greek origin and middle of this country, I said this country, we're in the United States, but we're in the Kingdom of Hawaii, although not declared. We sure have a loud cry for that. How did you decide, and why did you decide to run? The state Senate, newly apportioned district, an incumbent in the race for a long time, blah, blah, blah.
So one of the reasons why I chose to do that would probably stem from an Olelo No'eau that I'm holding dear to my heart. And it was confirmed by what I thought was an indigenous man yesterday morning, but I think he was an angelic being, very tall, ran into me in the parking lot at Whole Foods Kahului yesterday. And he confirmed this particular Olelo No'eau, and it was He a'ali iku makani nana iku la'i, which means I am a wind resisting a'ali'i. No gale can push me over. And when Mary Pukui had penned those words, she was already looking into the future of the islands, knowing the turmoil that it was facing, she made some definitive quotes that can encompass what our future is supposed to be. So I believe I stepped into a position that my ancestors had already dreamed into existence. And then I just moved into position. And the a'ali'i plant is a very strong woody plant. And many don't know about that, how strong this plant is. And you can actually see its effects on Kaho'olawe during the restoration. That was one of the plants that was used to restore that island and the soil and get it to begin to thrive again. So my decision to do this is mainly based on, I need this to be a planet that I'll be proud to say, as a grandmother, I'm going to leave behind for my grandchildren to enjoy and to malama, or to take care of. So that was where I had decided this is what I need to do. I moved here 10 years ago, and my husband and I, along with our 2 dogs, called Kihei our home. And I want to continue moving our state towards self-sustainability because it's possible. It's being proven on Kauai and here. It's possible. And it's really just a mindset change. After all, we are the leading change for our islands, our environment, and especially our people. Over the past few years, my involvement with Polynesian Voyaging Society has allowed me to adjust the sails. If Malama Honua taught us one thing, it's taught us that we need to keep doing what we're doing, and expecting different results definitely is a definition of insanity. So I've learned that through the voyage around the world that they recently did, and now preparing to embark on yet another one. Pono mako e nana, pono iko mako kaya puni o ho'ololi, which we need to pay attention, close attention to our environment and make the changes. We are not just in the middle of the Pacific Ocean by chance. This was all on purpose. And all of us that are stepping to the plate right now, especially as a Green Party, we know how to malama that. But now we need to begin fostering it, educating the keiki, and that's our job. Ecological, educational, and economical, it is our responsibility on the va'a or canoe. It's clear that each has a responsibility in order to set the course, to be accomplished. So I envision the Greens in Hawaii to provide that hope. While when I stepped into the classroom to teach for the first time, I might not have had this plethora of experience, but what I took to the table 29 years later, I have the unique opportunity to change the mindsets of a group of 10-year-olds who is also changing the mindsets of their families.
So I'm a newcomer to your world. You speak like you're Hawaiian, like you are immersed in the Hawaiian culture and children, and you've been a teacher for many years. Where were you before you came to Maui?
Before I came to Maui, I was on Oahu. That's where I raised my children. Yeah, so I was on Oahu.
So you've been here in Hawaii for numbers of years.
Oh, yes. Been here. My dad retired out of the Navy. He was 27 years in. So I was a junior in high school when I moved here. In 2 weeks, I turned the big 6-0. So yeah, I've been here for.
You're a youngster to me. You've been here a long time. I got here in 1988 from LA. So
got it.
You live in if I were going to choose on Maui, the big money area, it would be Kihei, Wailea, and Lahaina and Kapa. So you have a major district. If I was going to say, where's the bucks? Where's the beef? So you represent all kinds of interests, but heavily, there's all kinds of things around, like TAT tax possibility here locally. There's possibilities of traffic issues and what they're doing. Any pet issues that, I don't need to get specific, nor do you if you want.
Sure.
Because I'm looking at you. To me, I look at who is the person, not at what do they think about this street light or that pavement. Well, those are important issues. I'm hoping that those are things one can work out and make sense of. But I'm looking to see who you are, because like you said, you're green. You're here because you want to malama the Aina. You're here. And so to me, your positions are important, but I'm looking for big setup. I mean, I want to give you the floor and say, okay, the traffic's problem, tourism is this, it could be this, it can be that, we can work together. Because you have, your district is, like I say, if anyone was going to represent tourism or not, your district is like just a gigantor in Maui.
Yes.
And with all that's going on and the ideas about overcrowding and all the stuff that I might have to deal with locally, on a state level, you've got education, healthcare, all the highways, all the, in the funny world that they think they split it up. It's really one thing, but they split it up. So I'm going to just sit back and let you really roll with it. And I may cut out some of my big chatter along the way.
You got it. You got it. I'm one of my heart, the major part of my heart is education, and education will basically encompass so many categories. And one of the things that I caught wind of this year while teaching fifth grade for the first time, been teaching high school for those vast majority of 29 years. And this year was when I taught about deforestation. So while science teaches about deforestation, we have a group right here on Maui up in Pi'iholo that is actively creating what is called reforestation based on what the islands were like pre-contact with Captain Cook. And he himself said, and I quote from his journals, he was being advised by a local guy, his name is Tupaia, and Tupaia was the one that took him to these different places on the islands. So when you're being escorted and taken to places, you didn't find anything. It was already there. And in his journals that I believed are held in Europe, he said numerous times saying, Tupaia said, Tupaia said. So I went deeper in to look at, our pre-contact and what happened from then to now, and how can we get some level of restoration. Now, we're not going to get 100%, but at least move toward that type of restoration. And as a Green Party, it's like so important that we embrace and promote the development of respectful relationships across the human spectrum. And this year, when teaching fifth grade, I knew that teaching them about deforestation and now hearing each one of them say, why don't they just stop building? Yeah. So again, these are conversations that I was having them have at home. I would be the starter. Then they would go home and have these conversations. And I thought to myself, in retrospect, the last week of May, these were not your typical 10-year-olds that left my classroom, 10 and 11-year-olds. Their conversation sounded like they were speaking with me on this platform. And making any place better, while I don't have that kind of experience that's really needed to be a politician, what I did realize was being a politician was never a career choice. So when we look at career choices, it's not, because it's not a career. And I'm not going to play footsies around at the state capitol. When I get there, I expect to invoke change. And that's the reason why, corporate donations is not allowed to a Green Party, because no one can own us. So that in itself means people are not aware. When I talk to everyone over the years about politics, I'm like, and they're saying all these wonderful things about different candidates. And I asked them, I said, if you were to ask them to wear a NASCAR jumpsuit and you find out who all paid for their candidacy, and you were seeing today, like one high profile prosecutor who took all these campaign donations so that firm and he are on their way to spend some time thinking about it behind bars. But that's been going on with the history of politics, and especially two of those parties. So I thought to myself, this is the most historical time that the Hawaii leaders have, and they direly need people like us from the Green Party who think differently and who are motivated differently. So if you knew who I received my corporate donations from, would you still vote for me? And obviously the answer is plain and clear. So I said, this is why this kind of information is kept from the general public. And I'm looking forward to invoking so much change. Now, do I think I'm going to be successful in my first go around? Maybe not, but I do expect to work as hard as I possibly can, learn what I need to learn, because if I can read, I can teach, right? And if I can read, I can learn. And you only have to tell me one time. And once I master it, it's time for you to maybe get out of the way, because I'm not going to do it your way. Go ahead.
As a teacher, you're talking about these kids. They are our future. And man, you're lighting them up. And it's great to hear that fifth graders are hearing about this. But I'm just sharing you that other sad part. I've been banging on this door for 30 years in Maui. I see all kinds of stuff going on. And I think that's why I'm running, because I can talk to others about doing things, but unless I'm in the seat.
One of the things that is really standing out right now for me is when I returned back to college 5 years ago, my oldest granddaughter, my Hiapo Mo'opuna, a decision was made that she was going to grow up in Hawaiian immersion. And as a result, I knew that I had to be in tandem with what was going on with her, because as a teacher, I want to encourage that. So I returned back to college here at UH Maui, and I'm a continuing student. I probably will take classes forever because I just love how the information at that particular school is delivered. And one of my most treasured kumu, Kalekoa Ka'eo, one of the things that I have learned from him is it's not just about what you have to say, but when you get there, look at your audience. Now, there are times that I was speaking on whatever legislative issue came up and I was available. I would fly to Honolulu to speak on whatever issue it was. And he reminded me, and he would give us extra credit just for doing that. He wanted our whatever we were going to say. And one of the things that he told me was, it's not about the donkeys that are behind that, the microphones. It's about the people that are sitting with you. So you want to educate them so it would elevate the voice of the people. And we watch that. I mean, numerous people from all over and are like-minded like us that were there speaking. It did elevate our voices. And now people were showing up when normally they wouldn't. And people were asking questions of their particular legislators. And you can see where not the responsibility, but where the constituents knew they were being heard and when they weren't. And one of the things that stands out for me right now, because I live right on that street where they're building the school right here in Kihei, taking 20 years to do it, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. So you already can tell right there that the math was a little bit off. Now that they're building it, they took a year and jacked the traffic up here on Kulani Hakoi, right off of Pi'ilani Highway. I'm always going to call it Mokulele. So they put a traffic light in. So over a year, it seemed rather safe. I don't remember any accidents being up there. Then they're ripping that same road apart, and now they're going to put a 4-lane roundabout. When many here in Kihei don't even know how to use the roundabout on Pi'ikea, you're going to put a 4-lane on a very busy highway, and you're going to call it safe to get the kids to school. When I was going out getting signatures for me to run, I spoke with one of the helicopter pilots and he works for the county, and he told me, he says, you're not going to believe this. And they've been at it for I don't know how long with that roundabout and the mess that they're creating here in Kihei. He goes, they're laying some kind of pipes down, and I'm like, they're doing what? They're going ass backwards on this whole thing. And that's just like infrastructure. we build, we create this where hundreds of thousands of people are going to travel, and then you stop and look at taking care of the infrastructure. So there's something that's going on backwards. Don't know why. I can figure out why. So there are so many voices that, I mean, I can sit on the side at the beach under a tent and I can have meaningful conversation with, I mean, I did have it with a police officer who now is being privy to, yeah, this is the workings of what is going on. And if we don't do something right now, no one else will. So even if I start the conversation, and that's what Kalekoa said, you start the conversation, you start the mindset switch, and you watch the people say, wait a minute, what did she just say? Yeah, that's a question to ask. So my goal for the 4 years would be switch up the narrative, 1, 2, when I went around to get those 25 signatures, right? They had something to tell me, and I was hearing each one of them. And I put it in here and I thought, these are the people that I'm going to call on. I'm one of the directors for Kihei Town Party, and we got started, and now everybody wants in on the party because it's, you know, it's a wonderful thing. Anyways,
coming back again,
so
finally, huh?
Yes, all the drama is done. And when I was told, oh no, we can't have it because this was in March, in June there's going to be a different strain, and I was like, oh really? So who's instructing the mayor on this? Because I want to know who that is. And we're done with June, and in July, and you know, there was no strain. So anyways, I'm like, let me talk to the right people. And that is what I do, Jason. If you tell me that there's a special strain that's going to explode in June, I want to know. I'm going to locate what is it called? Loci of enunciation. I want the person who said it, and I want to know their background. So as a state senator for District 6, I'll tell you what my background is. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, been a teacher for over 29 years. So you trust me, I know what's going on. And given the right platform, I know I can invoke change. I know one thing is I listen to people. And one of the things that's happened over the years, and this is ever since I can remember, you can do all this waha, all this talking, and say you're going to do this and do that. And don't tell me that when I get into office, I have to play their game. No. The rules of engagement are going to change. And even if it means I have to be that one voice, I do one thing well. I ho'olohe, and in Hawaiian that means to actively listen. So ho'olohe, actively listen. I'm going to be doing a lot of listening, right? But I'm damn well not going to be doing a lot of agreeing, because nope, there's no compromise. You're asking me to compromise our very resource here. The Hawaiian word for wealth is vai vai. Do you think that my ancestors just went and picked that word out of the sky and decided this is going to be the word for wealth, vai vai? They knew what they were doing. They knew that water is wealth, and they knew that water was health. And I am going to do everything that I possibly can to protect that one source that we have here on Maui, because we can sustain ourselves from now until kingdom come. But I think we just need to I need to hear what the issues are. And you can trust me that the dialogue isn't just going to be me, because I'm going to need a community behind me that are saying, hey, this is something that you should think about. Very thoughtful, very insight, not just flip it from the top of their head, but hey, let's look at this. So then I gather all the information like I do with our nonprofit out in Kahoma, and we put this information together and say, okay, how is this going to help the entire community from now till 130 years from now, which is how long they kept that water from flowing?
Your philosophies, if I'm listening, I can't help but the world is burning. We are at that point. So
I don't think we've even seen the half of what the next storm will bring down where in McKenna. all those billion-dollar beachfront homes down there. I don't think they have any idea of what is impending. And I'm not this huge negative person, but I've studied science enough that these storms that we've had have given us insight and quite possibly a warning. But the one that's coming, that's the one that, like we're saying, they're not going to be prepared for. That school itself is going to be it's going to be a train wreck, like Maui Meadows is anytime there's these huge rains. But wait till the 100-year one. And everybody thinks this is not every 100 years. To understand 100-year rain, you're talking about a backup that will look like it didn't rain for 100 years. But one of the major things that I think I'm going to do is I'm going to ho'olohe for a little while. I'm going to listen to some of it. I'm going to be sitting there and thinking that was delusional thinking. So that's where that word belongs. But I think I'm going to be doing a little bit of listening, because I believe I'm going to bring to the table something that will turn into like a fireworks show by the time the discussion begins. And my heart is that everyone will hear that even as a 5th grade teacher, if a 10-year-old can understand this and say, why don't they just stop building? There it is, spoken from the mouth of a babe. Learning my culture, because I went to school in Washington State, great state because of the indigenous peoples that are there as well. So I had that really good, strong teaching on base, and I've embraced that part of my heritage as well. And then when I think about what's happening right now, in order to invoke change, it's not just going to be my thinking. That thinking that I'm taking to the table, and all of the people here in Kihei and everyone in Lahaina that I do so much community work with, and whether it's on a small scale or a large scale, I plan on, and they're on speed dial on my phone. I've got their email addresses. And when I ask them for their mana'o or opinion on this, and what do you think? And not just what do you think about it, but what do you think is a viable solution? Just a couple of ideas. Those are the kind of conversations that I have had for many years now. So we can do all that talking. And when I started learning my own culture and language, one of the bases that Kaleko and even Kumukiope Raymond lays out is it's easy to say, well, how do you say this in Hawaiian? What you have to do is you have to think Hawaiian. So you don't have to be a Hawaiian to think Hawaiian. You have to think back to those days. What were they thinking? Because everything they said, they meant. What was meant to be said was said. So there's no way to convolute a conversation in Hawaiian. So that was the thing I had to adopt, was I had to think Hawaiian, think all the way back then, listen to the interviews of old Hawaiians. I went and visited one up in Kula Hospital, spent a few days with her. We made food for her and sat there as she began telling me, and this is like 5 years ago. I did that as a simple project, went up there, and she shared with me, took me into the past, and even told me how we can get back there. So these visionaries, they're huge. These kupuna, these elderly Hawaiians, they have such vision, and they say, we can MISH. That's what I hear from them. Just have to do this, and so, sailing on Hokulea, getting in those short sails and learning how to operate as a unit, knowing that we depend on each other and our future depends on us listening to each other and becoming cohesive. So we create that bond on there because we've got to trust each other. 17 of us are on there, and there has to be some level of trust. One of the things that I think we need to build, and it's going to be an undercurrent to everything that we do, is, if a 10-year-old can get it, because I'm one of them who will say, okay, so this is what I heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong. And I want to be doing that with these politicians who probably have never really heard anything paraphrased, or let me tell you what I just heard you say. And then, yep. So tell me if that's something that you would explain to one of your family members that you expect them to understand, that you're willing to jeopardize their future living here and enjoying Hawaii because you're deciding that. And this is what I plan on doing. I plan on paraphrasing things and putting it right up in their face, which is what I did with Roz. Like, are you hearing yourself? 20 years, and you're so proud that 20 years later that school is going to get built. Really? What exactly was the process for that? Because I teach my students that. I teach them process. I teach them processes in algebra, in English, in spelling, in history and science. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do this. And it's proof, right? After all these years of all these politicians, we know it doesn't take a rocket scientist, but it's just going to take someone who's saying, I'm done with this, and I won't have to say it, but I'm going to begin looking at them like, did you hear what you just said? So let me repeat it to you. So I would love to just, if even change the narrative to begin 1, 2, to invoke whatever changes I most possibly can. Now, I do believe that when I do take that seat, that there are probably going to be people that are going to have to bring me up to par. Well, I've got enough people in my circle of influence that are just as crazy about change as I am and have the answers. That's who I want on the side of me. That's who I want to hear. I know what you can and cannot do, or what little unwritten rules you may have. Well, MISH isn't going to be one of those politicians, because I've got people to answer to. Number 1, the constituents. Number 2, my own family members. Do you know what it would be like having a conversation with my 9-year-old granddaughter and explaining to her why I was exploited and how I changed my mind? No, I'm not doing that. If I got to explain myself to a 9-year-old, I'm going to be telling her the truth, just like I do in my classroom. And I'm just grateful that given that opportunity this year to teach those 10-year-olds, they left my classroom speaking Hawaiian, and that wasn't part of the curriculum. Thinking Hawaiian. They left with a math background that will make them second to none in their 6th grade class. They left with an English background, spelling, science, history, and that is what I've been doing for 29 years, and I am not going to stop at the legislature.
In the teaching that you're doing, which I hear, but I hear this other side, which is much more get in the dirt, teach these kids not only science and math and history, which obviously will help them be more competitive as they apply it in a global world that now you can reach, because you don't even need a wire. You can suddenly be plugged into.
So I failed to mention, Jason, that in that deforestation lesson, I took them to get their hands into the aina, and we went up to Pi'iholo, where they are actually reforesting. We helped to clean parts of the land. And as a result of Mahipono not covering the ground of a lot of the land that's out there, the wells of Pi'iholo are almost running dry, because see, the aina knows that where there's no ground covering, it's gonna heal itself and send the water there. And as a result of rerouting a lot of the water, the well there was sort of dried up. However, that didn't mean that reforestation wasn't going to be successful. So when we were done, we together with the Hevas there, who are Maui Nui, the farm that's doing this, along with Keli'i Raichel, they are like educating people to no degree. So we left there, harvested dryland taro, got the entire explanation from the very root, the corm, all the way to the leaf. And once they were educated, we took what we harvested. I took the kalo, cleaned it with them at the school, took it to our cafeteria, had it cooked, served it to them in a few different ways. Then I took the leaf, we made lau. They ate poi, and I took the keiki that were a result of harvesting, and we put them into buckets. I had students asking to take them home and sending me pictures of it flourishing. One keiki, 9 months from now, will sustain that family. And as a result, I have 20 students that are growing kahlo, including myself. And I told them, you can do it right there, wherever you live. And their families embrace it. And that is something else that I teach as well. So while it may not be in the curriculum, I'm grateful for the school I'm at. I don't have to teach to that curriculum. I can take that curriculum and just bring it to life. And I've been dealing with phone calls because their parents are wanting me to teach their sixth grade class. And I'm like, oh gosh, I just want to give this to teachers alike, that bring that class alive. And you know what? When they said these students are going to be a little behind, the national because of COVID, I decided to teach them without thinking of what they missed. I taught them ahead. And as a result, they're going to be top gunning sixth grade. And they're going to be students that are going to be sought after because of that mindset change. And I thought, are they too young for this? I did question myself. And I'm like, no, they're not. I have this conversation with my 9-year-old granddaughter. This conversation is rather appropriate. I mean, we think about all the inappropriate things that are going on at schools and in curriculum. I just added to their curriculum. So I'm excited about that. So like you, I believe in not just teaching them, but they went and put it to the grind. The parents are a part of it, and knowing that they can harvest that come January. We're harvesting that kahlo that we planted, and it just continues. So they're going to get keiki from that. The makua, or the older one, will always be the one that sources, but the keiki that come out of it, or the children, they're going to replant that. And this process, at least for 20 students and myself, is going to continue. So they're going to infect other family members and friends, because they're all asking. Next year, this coming school year, I have students one more time that I'm going to continue doing this with. So running for that Senate seat, District 6, it's just a different kind of classroom is how I'm going to look at it. And if why I'm there is going to invoke that kind of change, and to know that it is possible. Stop sitting here and figuring, things out the way you guys are. I've got an idea. I'm going to listen to your idea. And if we can put our ideas together and make and invoke changes, I'm excited about it. So I've got a lot to learn still.
Believe it or not, we've spent, I think, an hour.
I think so, yeah.
Why don't you kind of sum it up and talk to the people out there like you're looking right in the eye?
I look them right in the eye. Ke hili na ine na ha nauna, e hiki mayana yamako. The future generations are depending on us. The future generations are depending on us. And I would expect that we give them nothing less than what our heart desires, what our mind can conceive, and we just have to keep that in our forefront. While I think my future is there as well, I'm going to tell you, Kehili na ine na ha nauna, e hiki mayana yamako. The future generations are depending on us. And I don't believe by happen chance that visit that I had from this very tall gentleman yesterday was nothing short of an angelic visit to give me I guess what they call the oomph to move forward with what we're about to do. So I'm excited. Jason, thank you so much for this time. And I totally look forward to it.
This is, to me, a way that people can get to see you up close and personal, so that they know, hey, I like this woman. I would like to be able to have her in that seat. These 3-minute things are just we get 3 minutes as a candidate. I can't imagine how someone's going to look at 80 candidates 3 minutes at a time and think that's their political experience.
Yes, yes.
But here they can get up and, they can watch it again. They can get in touch with you, and they can really embrace what you're talking about. And even if the election is just a benchmark, it's just along this road, you're on a road of healing and being there with the kids and really setting the foundations for the future. Thank you, Mish.
Mahalo, mahalo nui loa, Jason, mahalo.
And all of you out there, please know that you can watch this again and get up close to all the candidates at MauiNeutralZone.com and take the time to see who you think in these races. There are more than just one or two candidates. So take the time to take a look, because you are the reason that things move. We stand in place, but you have to give us the power. The power is the people. I know that's how I feel. Melissah.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Like in militia.
Yes, that would be me.
But MISH, I much prefer MISH. I can see. I thought it was a conglomeration, but your story's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings to you all out there. And thank you again, MISH, for being here. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.